I knew I was going to do that. What is going on, All Terrain Nation? Whether it be two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, you know the drill. It does not matter what you drive because this is your All Terrain Nation, and I am your host, David Boyd. And tonight we have YouTube royalty. I'm just going to say it. We've got YouTube royalty because Tim Esterdahl with Pickup Trucks Plus SUV Talk. I probably messed it up, Tim. I know, but Tim, you've spent some time with the Bronco, man, and I know my audience, Bronco Nation here, is super excited to know your thoughts and opinions. But Tim, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm getting better as the night goes on, but I'm doing pretty good.
Well, hey, cheers, man. you can only get better, right? So first off, I always ask Danny this: what's in your glass tonight, Tim?
Just doing some Crown tonight. I'm looking into my corner of my eyes. Over yonder, I do have quite the selection of whiskeys to choose from.
I'm very jealous of what happened at your doorstep.
So, for those who don't know, I had a super fan. I'm calling super fan. Stopped by the house with like $1,500 worth of whiskey, and I have some bottles. I don't think I can pronounce some of these bottles. So I'm kind of going through them. I've opened one because on our live streams with Jill on the channel, we picked the one with the biggest proof, which is 113 proof, I think it was. And I will tell you, that is hot.
Right.
It's so hot. Yeah, I think I'm going to wait till we get some snow on the ground to enjoy some of these whiskeys because they are, yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, I remember telling you, hey, man, I had a fan send me a bottle of, what is it, Blanton's or whatever it's called. I know you got a bottle too. And I was like, holy hell, that was awesome of a person to send me that. And then like you just totally went up me. You're like, hey man, I got 50,000 subs. What do you got? Oh, 3,000? No, look what I get.
I wasn't trying. It wasn't my intention, but yeah, holy cow. So
I know.
Yeah, it's been. Here's the interesting part of this. I should actually grab it. This is really funny. Here, let me grab it. Hold on.
All right. If you guys haven't yet, Tim dropped a video today where he had a review of his first edition Bronco, and it's a really good review. And it's kind of Tim. Oh, look at all that, Tim.
But here's the thing, Dave. Is it's all this whiskey in like a $3 milk jug container.
I know. That's awesome.
That's the great part with that. Is I have a bar in the basement kind of sketched out. But my kids are like, 8 and 11. I'm not putting that downstairs.
Right.
It stays in my office where I can see it. And so I have all this whiskey in this really non-decorative, non-decor milk crate.
That's crazy. That is crazy. So I was telling everybody, Tim, you dropped a video today. I'm going to post the link right now. I'll throw it over there. People can find it. Where you got to drive around in the first edition for a week. And if people don't know, you get it more than I do, but we get press release cars, and you being truck eccentric, like that's your thing is trucks. Of course, I know what's in your driveway now, which is like mind boggling, but you seem to this past year have really taken with Ford because you went out and bought a Power Boost truck, F-150, right? And so, like, you are a Ford guy right now, it seems like, and can do no harm in that area. And you got to test out that first edition Bronco, and made me super jealous, Tim, because you know how much I've been talking about this thing. So
a lot of interesting avenues taking that. I mean, yes, I did buy an F-150 Power Booster channel because it was the newest truck out there. I also did the Rust videos, which was not so good on Ford.
Yeah, maybe not.
So I mean, they've been happy with me. They've been upset with me. I'm not on their caca list, as your mobile moto says, caca. But so I had a conversation. Yeah, ask away, guys. I had a conversation, and I was talking to fleet managers. The fleet managers organize the loans, and I said to them, I said, hey, we didn't get the invite to the Bronco launch, and I know the person in charge of SUVs at Ford, and she's very apologetic. It was a matter of I got taken off the spreadsheet somehow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not nefarious by any ways. It wasn't anything that was really bad. It just was kind of those things. And so I said, was that part of the issue? And he goes, no. He goes, look, I got the vehicle in. Look for people who needed a vehicle to be swapped with. You were first on my list, so I swapped with you.
Right.
So, I mean, sometimes you can read through these things, like having all this sorts of stuff going on, and it's just like it doesn't really. You read more into it what it can be there. Abraham wants to know about back seat AC. My kids were back there. I'd have to double check the look again. If they have rear seat AC, it's going to be underneath the floor.
It is. It's under the seat.
It's under the seats, yeah, because it didn't have the typical fans in center console. But
speaking of that, Tim, why do you think that is? Because the Jeep has it in the back of the console, and you're going to hear a lot of comparisons to Jeep tonight because that's what Ford's going after. They're going after that Wrangler market. But you would think that they would have kind of did what Jeep does, where there's the two vents on top and it was movable, and it's just like the Bronco has fixed positions and it's just cool air and that's all you get.
I think it's a routing issue. I mean, that center console isn't very big at all.
Yeah. Oh, and you did show some pictures of how much you could shove in that thing.
So it fits about 1 Crown Royal bottle of whiskey. So this is maybe 1.5 of these bottles. And so I mean that's the top of the lid to the bottom of the lid. That's as tall as that console is.
Okay.
And so I think I would say it's probably just a spacing issue with that. And I understand the Jeep Wrangler make it work, that kind of stuff, but I'm sure it just was. That's what I'm thinking was. It was probably easier for them to put it underneath the floor, from a manufacturing standpoint and from a packaging standpoint, than it was to put it behind the center console.
Well, so I want to show something real quick, and
it's AC, Abraham. It's AC. So whatever the front dial is turned to AC, that same temperature goes underneath the floor to the rear passengers.
Because I have something. Where's that? There it is. All right. So Tim, you can't see this, but I'm going to show Tim trying to put the doors back on this thing a little bit. This is off of Tim's channel now. And
in my defense, I didn't realize I was wearing gray on gray.
That is funny in itself.
I put the hoodie on and I got hot, and I didn't realize until I was done that I was wearing these two colors of gray.
But obviously we've talked, and you don't, when you get press releases of Jeeps, you don't go out of your way to take the doors off, because why? Like, you only get it for a short time, and you're more about performance. And
yeah, I mean, to be honest, the real answer there is a lot of Wranglers I get for like 3 days for whatever reason. The 392 I had for 3 days, and it rained for 2 of those 3 days. I mean, I never got a Jeep Wrangler during the summer. I've always got them in the spring or the fall or the winter.
Wow.
And the temperature's always been bad. And then the other thing too is, like, do I really want to go through all this hassle of taking the doors off? But the Bronco, when it arrived, I had it for 7 days. There was no rain in the forecast. It was 100 degrees in like 3 of those 7 days. And so it was immediate, like, all right, this makes total sense. And again, it's not being nefarious towards Jeep at all. It's just a practicality of what's going on and the timing of things. So while we're talking about the doors here, this is a very interesting topic. So I did my time lapse, which you suggested, which I think was kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And I did time lapse putting the doors on, because putting them on was kind of a pain in the butt. But somebody mentioned stressful. That there was a door pin guide.
Mm-hmm.
I was not aware of this. The video I saw was from Bronco Nation,
right?
And I did it, and then somebody said there's a door guide. He pointed me to the video of this door guide, and that video came up from Ford 4 days ago. So during the time I had the Bronco, they released a video I did not see.
Right.
And it's a door guide. It actually screws into the bottom of bracket of the door, and you put the bottom in and put the top in. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to speak to this because I think it's pretty interesting, is that my kit I never saw this thing. It wasn't in my kit. Yeah. This door guide was not in my kit. I didn't have it, and I didn't have that set up there. And then I thought it was really interesting because the Bronco Nation video was a single guy putting the door on, and the Ford video was 2 people putting the door on. Which would have been nice, because I got kind of, it was half an hour putting the 4 doors on and the 3 roof panels on. But my thing is, even with the door guide, I really want to talk about this if I had the chance. If the Bronco's gone, if I still had it, I would have talked about this.
Right.
Who cares about the bottom? The bottom's simple.
Yeah.
It's round hole to round hole. The top is a square nut that's welded in, and you have to match square nut to square door, and you can't see the door where the square is.
Well, I think privately, me and you had talked about that a little bit because you were like, hey, man, on the videos, these doors seem a little wider. I was talking to somebody about this. Like, the video doesn't show you actually how much room you do not have. Like, it's a little tight area to get that in there, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then it's tight. Then you worry about bending the door panel a little bit when you go to close a little bit because you're not sure everything lines up quite right. I mean, it was fairly stressful this morning putting those doors on, and I put them on today because they picked up vehicle today. I wanted to get them on. The guy's not going to drive back to Denver with the doors off. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that happened, but I will tell you, going through the process of doing it, it's a two-person job, and it's something that I wouldn't do regularly.
Really?
I would. I mean, I would if I were looking. I look at forecast. Okay, it's going to be sunny and 65 or 75 for the next 7 days. Take them off. For I mean, and that it was interesting because they were like, well, you should take them off. There's a sticker on the door jamb that says off-road use only, take doors off. It affects the safety of the vehicle if you take them off driving around regular roads. Well, no caca, idiot, right? I mean, that's low, right?
Right.
I mean, that's just what that looks. But the other thing too is like, if you're gonna go wheeling all day, and then you're tired, and the doors are in the back of the vehicle because you've been putting them in the bags in the back. A, they're banging around. B, you lose all your cargo capacity. And then C, you're tired, and you're like, hey, you need to wipe off the dirt of your door jambs before you put them on. Well, yeah, obviously.
Right.
But I'm thinking about how much dust is all through the cabin and on the door jambs. And I'm like, I don't know that the last thing I want to do is stop it in a trail because I've been on multi-day wheeling events. I'm pretty beat up by the end of the wheeling. I mean, it's an ab workout, it's an arm workout, it's neck work. I mean, you're tired, and I just don't think that that's something you want. So I find it all really fascinating. I mean, is it easier to take doors off than it is Jeep Wrangler? From my understanding, yes. When I've seen Jeep Wranglers take doors off, it's much easier. Easier to put on.
I will say this: I take my Jeep doors off pretty regular now, and what I found, they make these because the Jeep doors have a little shaft that comes to it, and that's where the bolt just kind of screws up to hold the door on there. But the old Jeeps didn't have a bolt on the bottom, so you could just slide the doors in and off and no problems. But I found on Amazon they make these little guides. You just screw it on the Jeep door, and boom, you just slide the door on and off as you want, and it takes the stress out of it. Because I will say that is stressful trying to you don't want to chip your paint up, and you're sitting there, especially if you're one person. And that front door in the Bronco's 60 pounds, something like that.
It's 60 pounds, and I mean, and I said in my video that if you're the owner, you cut this time down in half, right? I mean, you do it more often. For me, I've never done it before, so it took a lot longer to do. But yeah, it was really interesting. Speaking of the doors off, somebody asked about the sound system. I had the B&O sound system, and I will tell you that it was not even at it was about 3/4 power, and it was still too much in the cabin with the doors and roof off at 70 miles an hour.
Oh, so
what? Sounded good there.
So the Jeep, obviously the speakers are kind of right behind your head on the sport bar that goes across. Now on the Bronco, it's in the back, but you still feel like you could hear it okay.
Yeah, it was still fantastic. Yeah, yep, I had no problems there at all.
Well, I've always heard that B&O sound system is sort of overrated. Like it's sort of a name because it is a high fidelity company, but they just sort of kind of pimp their name out here, and it's just like it's okay.
I'm not an audiophile by any stretch of imagination at all, but
I seen your satellite radio selection on your video.
So I will say that I could hear the songs just fine. Thank you very much, and had no problems there.
Well, so guys, load up your questions for Tim, and I'm going to randomly post his link to the video because show Tim some love over there because. Obviously, you guys know me for off-road and a lot of Jeep and Bronco talk, but Tim, you do it all. So kind of give my audience, because some of them may be new to you, like you cover everything, right?
I mean, I've been a freelance journalist. Was freelance for many years for magazines. As the stuff on the wall, I've been in different magazines and newspapers and Boston Globe and all that kind of stuff. And I'm looking at Boston Globe. There's another one too. There's uh, Chicago Sun-Times is the other one, and I've done trucks and SUVs primarily through my career, and I still primarily do them. I created my own channel because I got tired of selling freelance work to bigger outlets. But yeah, I mean, basically name the outlet. I've been in it one way or the other, and so this is kind of my career. This is what I do. I have a staff that work for me now on the channel, and we have a website as well. And yeah, we just tend to do trucks and SUVs mostly. I do have a not truck or SUV in the driveway currently, which is always funny when those things arrive. And there's a story behind that as well. But yeah, I live western Nebraska, which is we have a lot of trucks on the road. I mean, I tell people, I said per capita we have more trucks and SUVs than they do in Texas. However, we don't have the capita.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So I mean, that's literally what that turns into.
It's
but,
you
yeah,
and your 6 neighbors there.
Yeah. I mean, and if you look at like the big stories in the last, I don't know, I want to say 5 years, I think I've been fortunate to be part of most of the big stories that hit the truck news in the last 5 years.
Well, so on to that door. So I've noticed that with the cool thing about the Jeep is obviously the pins are on the outside of the door, so you kind of can see it better when you're trying to line the doors up versus what Bronco has. But the next thing that I've kind of noticed is using the door frame of the Jeep. You can actually hold it and balance the door when you're trying to guide everything in. Bronco doesn't have that. Bronco is just a rectangle door basically with no window. Awesome.
Oh, the top one. Yeah.
So you got nothing. If you don't hold it from where they want you kind of to hold it, it's got to be a nightmare, right?
Yeah. So the bags are interesting, and the engineering there was pretty interesting. So they have these bags, and the bags go on the doors, they enclose, and they zip and close. And so was great was Ford made me clean up my garage because I needed to, but I didn't want to put these bags in the Bronco all the week. I just wanted to put it in the garage because I wanted the cargo room. Because I was grocery shopping, golfing, and that kind of stuff. I wanted the cargo room back there. But the bags have handles on the bottom and also on the top. And they're strategically placed handles. So they actually did think this through quite a bit. And then the bottom of the door has a lift here point, so you can lift it up there.
Yeah.
I just found that, especially taking them off, you had to put the door on its side, then get the zipper around the end. It's a common problem, all sorts of bags.
Right.
And they only have one zipper, so you can't like meet 2 zippers in the middle, which would be kind of better if they had 2 zippers there. But I just found a lot of cases, once I got the top bolt lined up and the bottom bolt was kind of closed, I tended to rip the bag off because the bag's a little slippery, things are moving a little bit, and I wanted a firm hold spot. Because so this is the backstory that people don't understand with this vehicle that I had, the Bronco. And I'm trying to think of the guy's name with the rest of the story. You guys used to do a radio show with the rest of the story. Paul
Harvey.
Paul Harvey.
Yeah.
So the rest of the story here is that, as a journalist, this comes from the press fleet in Denver, and there are 30, 40, 50 journalists in the area, maybe too much, maybe 30, that would get this vehicle. And I actually got this vehicle from Top Gear UK, was the last person to have it. They actually drove from Austin, Denver, flew out back to UK.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, I had some concerns about this vehicle in that if I damage this vehicle, how long would parts take to get in?
Right.
And how many other journalists would I screw along the way because they would not be able to have this?
Well, I know there's one crew that probably wouldn't give a damn about that, and they just go take it up a big hill and not even care.
Right, and the press fleet guy said that too. But anyways, I don't want to be that guy,
right?
Those people.
And because you're granted access. Like
I am.
There is a privilege to that, and also a responsibility to that.
Well, so I mean, so in my standpoint, I mean, you want to test this vehicle out, and I drove the hell out of it, but you want to test it out responsibly, that you're not going to screw it over. Like, if the Bronco comes back next year, and everybody's had a run through it, I'm going to go blast it up some hill and hopefully get it stuck. I mean, it's different philosophy back then.
Right.
Because it's just being responsible. So the one thing in my video is I didn't take it off-road, and the reason why I didn't was 2 things. A, breaking it. I didn't want to do anything, off-road typically leads to something being broken.
Sure.
And 2, I didn't think I needed to because there are 1,000 videos about off-roading the Bronco. But there's no like 5 good and bad, you know what I mean, the style I do.
Right.
And so I really wanted to get the perspective of, and people can make snarky comments about the Bronco never going off-road and all kind of stuff that people do, but I mean, the reality is a lot of people can drive this on road and they're going to like it because it's a cool looking rig. And it does really well on road. And so I really wanted to kind of focus on that. So I don't think people didn't pick up on the video as much as I thought they would. I thought we'd get some comments and haterade on that, and people didn't pick up that I didn't really go off road. But when you have 35-inch tires, when you have a 2.7-liter turbo, when you have a 10-speed transmission, when you have the goat modes, and you have the four-wheel low and the hill descent control, and locking rear, locking front rear differentials, plus the quick turn, and you have the stabilizer bar that gets disconnected. For crying out loud, it's going to be awesome off road.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
what am I going to say? Oh, it's awesome off road. Now here's some video of it. I mean, come on, it's going to be awesome off road. There's no question there. Well, to me, that's not the question. The question is going to be, can it be a daily driver and an off road rig? That's the big question.
Because that's what even the Wrangler. That's what these things really are. They're more of a daily driver that is capable of going in on the weekends and having fun. Now, granted, when people get these things used in 10 years, I think me and you discussed this. 10 years, people are going to go add 40-inch tires to these things. They're going to solid axle the front for whatever reason, and they're just going to go, when they're $10,000, people are going to go beat the piss out of them, and then that's a whole new level of doing it. But in reality, Ford built a vehicle that was intended to be on road, handle great, still have performance, and you feel capable. And I think just alone adding the 35-inch tires to this, you feel capable. You don't feel like, oh man, this wouldn't go over anything. So that was the intent, and after that, it's all gravy. After that, if it can do it, it can do it. Cool.
Yeah, I just that's what I think. That's my goal was, and so as a journalist, two things: you want to review the vehicle the way it's meant to be reviewed, but also I think about things from a competitive standpoint. I don't want to do the same review everybody else has done, so I tend to just look at things a little bit different in that viewpoint. Everyone wants to know about 0-60 time and the 2.7. It is very fast. It's very fast. It's a great powertrain for that size vehicle. It is exceptional. And I thought I have a video coming out in 10 speed because I have it in my Power Boost. But we make a lot of hay about the 10 speed, and I've had no problems with mine, no problems with any of them. And I know what the problem is. They're talking about the F-150. I'm gonna have that video coming out soon. But it was perfect. The 2.7 is perfect for that. I've had questions today about the 6.8 that they were going to build for the Mustang and the F-150 as well. The 5-liter, there's like a 6.8 they're trying to build in Unifor in Canada. There's like a 5-liter, people are talking about that 5-liter Bronco R needs to be in there. And I just think for that size of vehicle, it could have the same problem the Jeep Wrangler 392 is. The 392 in the Wrangler is awesome. It sounds great, it's fantastic, and you lose traction at a blink of an eye.
Right.
All the time. It is too much power for that vehicle. And I think the people are saying if you go with 5-liter V8 in that Bronco, I think you'll find the performance will be less than. It may not be as fast because that turbo is going to really help that go. You have a heavier engine, and I just feel like you can just get the exhaust note, but it's not going to be there. It's not going to be where you want to be. You can go 2.3 with that, but why would you go 2.3 with a Bronco? Why not just go all in? Why would you go? I'm mystified by people that would just opt for the lesser engine there.
Well, and the Coyote itself, the 5-liter Coyote, is a wide engine. People do not; these aren't modern. These are modern engines. They're not like the old V8s where they're just a V. The Coyote is more of they go out. It's damn near a boxer engine. Part of how it goes straight out, and why, like you're saying, why do people think that? Oh, I need 500, 600 horsepower in this thing for what? The torque numbers with that 2.7 are outrageous. There will be tunes for that engine. You can free up some power through the exhaust and cap back down, and there'll be things you can do to it, man. Just give them time. And as you know, Ford is about done with V8s, really. Like the days are numbered for Ford and V8s.
Yeah, I mean they really are. You look at the split in F-150, and basically it's like 70-30 in some configurations, 60-40 in others, as far as the EcoBoost engines versus the V8.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends what the people are buying. But I mean, the local fleet guy, dealer here in town, local Ford dealer, he's got a ton of 2.7s. People tend to shit on the 2.7s all the time. And the reality of things is, from a fleet guy's perspective, you get fuel economy, you can still tow with it, and it still moves the vehicle pretty well.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I understand that's where the volume's at. And so I just, I love a V8. My 62 C10 has got a V8.
Right.
He will always have a V8. He's got dual exhaust. He will always have it. I will probably, as the future goes, as I buy a new truck every year, I probably won't have a V8 for the rest of my life.
Right.
Because that's the way the market's going. And I understand it because, while you lose the exhaust note, you gain so much more performance. And I was hot dogging that Bronco all week long. I mean, I was on the gas all week long. And I always drive in normal mode. I don't drive in sport mode or anything. I just drive normal mode because that's. I think people forget about drive modes more often they remember them.
Yeah.
And I was still getting like 17.5 mile per gallon,
Well, I
which
think
I thought was fine. I thought it was good for that.
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I was doing in that vehicle.
Well, it's a big, heavy tire. Let's not act like those are light tires by any means. Rolling resistance there, but so that 2.7 and I think seriously though, I think once because Ford Performance has a tune coming for it, I think it's more of the power than you. Think about it. 25 years ago, 300 horsepower was like in a full size truck was like, oh man, they'll never cross that threshold. And, Nissan brought out the Titan, and it had like 305 at the time, so they broke the barrier, and then everybody quickly one-upped them on that. And horsepower is awesome, but at the end of the day, I've done some extreme off-roading, and sometimes power is you can get yourself in a lot of trouble with power. It's about control, and obviously they've given us nice front and rear lockers in the one you had, and it's learning what you have. Don't go. I would not tell an 18-year-old kid to go buy a Jeep 392 and go off-roading. Like it's crazy.
It's too much. I mean, and then there's a question about turbos, right? There's always this question about turbos in back of people's minds about lasting. And what's interesting is we did a story in F-150 reliability, and we found out that the V8 was less reliable than the turbos were in the 2.7 and 3.5.
Wow.
And so it's like, wow, why would you say that? Well, when you look at car complaints, NHTSA, all the big sites that take all these complaints in, there's always my buddy's cousin's friend blew his turbos. Right. There's always that story out there, right. But the reality is like oil usage. There was questions about something else that V8. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I tell people like, look, diesels have had turbos for years.
It's not new technology by any means.
Yeah, I mean, the 70s turbos were terrible. I absolutely agree. They ran too hot. They blew stuff up. I mean, absolutely. But if things have changed, and I find that the turbo lag was not that bad in the Bronco. Yes, there were times that if I was 20, 25 miles an hour and I put my foot down, there was a little lag. But then it was like a jet taking off, like, holding on. But I kind of expected that, right? I mean, I'm driving along like Little Miss Daisy, and then I hammer it, right? I mean, come on, something's got to transmission shifting. There's something's going to happen with that, right? Right. If I was offline like that, I would probably have the same. If I was a sport mode, I mean, if I was doing things a little bit differently, they probably wouldn't have the same kind of thing. But yeah, I find that the 2.7 was perfect. I think turbos are going to be where it's at, and I think Ford is. I mean, they killed their half-ton diesel. I mean, they're all in on gas turbos. I mean, that's just where they come from.
I was amazed they didn't give the diesel very long at all in that half-ton. A year and a half, something like that? 2 years, maybe?
3 years, actually. And it really wasn't that good.
Yeah.
I drove it 2 different occasions, and it wasn't that great of a diesel engine. So
I'm at a loss with diesel because I hear this in the V8 for Bronco. When are we getting a diesel? Guys, I'm sorry, the Gladiator or the Gladiator doesn't get it, but the Wrangler and all that, I guess the Gladiator does get a diesel.
Yeah, it's starting. It was late availability like last year, something like that.
But it's rare that people want those. I mean, because this size of vehicles, you're not towing with it by any means. And if that 2.7 liter already has 400 foot-pounds of torque, what more do you need?
410 at like 555 horsepower too. So it's not like it's a. I mean, the RPMs could be lower on that, which would make it even faster, which is probably the tune. You probably tune that so the hits the torque curve a lot sooner.
Yeah.
But even then, I'm like, diesel doesn't make sense to that. I will say that I will never buy a Silverado with diesel in it.
Really?
That thing is fantastic. that inherently balanced inline six is just fantastic. And why people don't build more of those, I don't understand, because that thing is simple technology, and it's a fantastic engine. But yeah, I've been asked many times about this. Like, does the Bronco need more power? Does it need more? No. I think for the size vehicle, I think it's perfect. Now, there's always gonna be that bro who wants more. But when you're looking at low end torque in the 410 foot-pound range of that, as far as changing the RPM, I think that's where the benefit would be. If you can bring the RPM curve or that 410 coming down a little bit lower, I think you'd have that off-roading capability. Because the thing is, off-roading, when you're dealing with mud, you need horsepower. When when you do everything else, basically, you need torque.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what happens off-roading. So I just don't think that there's much more benefit there going additional horsepower.
Yeah, I was always amazed. I would take my little Nissan Xterra up hills and stuff. It'd be rainy and muddy, and the little 3.3 engine in it was just a high RPM, could throw mud like crazy. And these guys in these old what was the straight six there? Oh, the 4-liter straight six that they were putting in the old Wranglers. It could not hit any RPMs, man, and I could clear mud and just fly up hills, and that little engine couldn't do anything, but it had torque like crazy versus the modern V6. And speaking of that, so in your review, you kind of gun it a little bit and have some fun with it. Did you happen to notice the piped in V8 sound or the kind of more spirited sound that the Bronco gives?
No.
Really?
And the simple answer for that is that the doors and roof off all the time.
Right. So yeah, you didn't care.
Here's the thing: the only time I drove it with the roof and doors on was do the video this morning, and the only reason I did that was because the damn weather was crappy.
Right.
You know, I would have drove with the doors off in my video, but the weather was crappy, and I don't want to be rained on because I mean, it's such a brand new vehicle, and I don't want somebody else to have an electrical problem with it. But
right.
you know, B, I wanted to get the doors on. I was under time frame. They're picking up 11. I was doing my video at 8. I mean, just all this tactics going about. But that was the only time I drove with the doors and roof on. And I thought it was. I mean, it's not the quietest rig because it's not going to be right with the hard top of things. But it was fine. I mean, but I didn't notice any sound.
Well, that is one of the things that I hear more than any other really comment about. Hey, is it quiet? You're like, this vehicle is as quiet as it can be, but you're buying this vehicle with the understanding that modularity isn't always the quiet makes it for a quiet vehicle. If you want a quiet vehicle, go buy a Lexus or something, a little car, and then it's going to be quiet and you can enjoy your radio. These vehicles are intended to be modular and kind of loud. And I did notice when I was playing with one in East Tennessee that slight wind noise around the windowsills a little bit in the roof, but other than that, I mean, even that wasn't annoying or loud.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it didn't annoy me as much as Jeep Wrangler does. The Wrangler's loud.
Come on, Tim, you're killing me.
It is loud. It's very much louder than the Bronco is. It's like, would you guys can you just take a little bit of styrofoam, shove it in the door panels?
Yes.
The A-pillar for kind of just do something, you know. But I thought that it was still good. Even my video, I said I was so comfortable, and I think you could road trip in it, which you really can't do with many off-road kind of oriented vehicles.
Yeah.
You could off-road. You could road trip with that with 35s on it, and have a not so terrible experience. I think driver fatigue would be a little bit more because of the way the Bronco's set up,
right?
Versus say a Cadillac, right? I mean, there's different vehicles, but I think you could road trip with that pretty easily. And the crazy story was that I drove to my friend's house to play golf with. He's 75. He got in within 10 minutes. He said, "I have to buy this. This is so me." Next day, he went and bought a Bronco.
Really? Put the money down, huh?
Right. He went. Put his deposit in and made his order in, and he's on the list, and he's going to pay cash for it. He's at the point in his life. But, and then I drove to the dealership and had people hopping in. The sales manager, 2 salespersons, and a prospective customer. I gave them trips in this around the block or so, and we all came to the same conclusion that it's roomier than the Wrangler is. It rides better than the Wrangler does, and it's really a staunch competitor. I think it's really going to do well with this. And that was interesting because there's conversations about the price. So the first edition Sasquatch I had, the sales sticker they put in the vehicle said no price, but they had left one in there from the event in Austin the week before.
Right.
It was laminated, and I saw it, and it's $63,000. I think that's probably $5,000 to $8,000 more than it's worth.
Yeah.
But that first edition Sasquatch, I think it's the price point. But I think that's incentive money, rebate money. I think that's their play around margin area in that realm.
Yeah.
I think this is a 40, 45 is a good price all day. Now, my golf partner who bought one spent 60 on his, but he wanted the Sasquatch. I made him get the Lux package because the way Ford does packages should be criminal, but they
Yes.
I mean they put all this stuff together in packages. And I wanted to make sure he had adaptive cruise, lane departure, because well he's 75. He's
Yeah.
got problems seeing out of his left eye. Like this
You're
is stuff
you're
he
just
needs,
thinking of the public there.
right? This stuff he needs. But if I were to buy a Bronco, I'd be in the 40-45 range, probably after incentives. I'd wait for a while.
Well,
And
which
so
would you go with, 2-door or 4-door?
see, I would go four-door. I don't think that the length is that big of an issue. Our friends in Boulder bought a short wheelbase Wrangler.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about how much the length is a big issue for him and getting up the hills and such. And I'm like, I really don't. To me, it's about space.
Well,
I want the room.
we had talked about this privately that we were comparing. Hey, what's the size of these vehicles? And what you were saying, Bronco, I didn't realize 7 inches. Is it the 4-door or both of them that are 7 inches?
Yeah,
long?
it's one of the two. I look at my specs, but I think I talked about our cut of my video because I don't want to make sure I have the specs correctly, but there's I think it's a 4-door. It's 7 inches longer in the Bronco than it is the Wrangler.
But you
And
happen
so
to notice all the cargo space. You gained a lot of room for that.
oh yeah, I mean there's when I fold down the seats in the rear area, there's more room back there than the Wrangler ever can dream of,
Yeah.
for sure. And so I mean, that's my perspective was like I put my golf clubs in there, put the doors in there, I could put the everything out, the rooftops in there, everything I want to do in there, and still have room. And so like to me, if you can go camping for a couple days, you could take all your camping gear, set up camp, then put your doors off, store them in the back of the Bronco, whatever you want to do, and have a good time. Versus the Wrangler, you may be pulling a trailer.
Well, I will say this. I like that you can put the doors in the back of that thing, but I also think that's a gimmick. Like, it's a big gimmick because any Jeep event I've ever been to, those guys, they go to the event, they pull them doors off and they put them in their cabins or whatever, and because they want a cooler back there. And I think you had mentioned this in one of your part of your video about putting a cooler or something back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not storing the doors back there that they can beat the shit out of each other bouncing around. And I'm sure when it all snaps together, it's pretty secure. But then you go off roading, it's a bumpy deal. And I don't want. I probably would never. I like the bags that you had for that, but those aren't standard. You have to pay for those.
Oh, really?
Yes, which I would have. If I would afford, especially all the trouble they've had launching this thing, I would have probably included those instead of Ford points. I would have just been like, hey, we're including this as standard. But before I forget, Tim, I have to say to all my Bronco people in here, happy anniversary, because today. 7/13 is exactly 1 year, and it's about around this time that launch video came out and this phenomena started. So happy birthday, I guess, everybody. And if you got your Bronco today, really happy birthday, because I know some people that exactly a year they got their Bronco. But that leads me to the question, man, where do you think Ford is with the launch of this thing? Because I've said it many times. I think that video was the launch of the year last year. And anything else after that, I think Ford just sort of messed up a little bit. And PR and engineers, they don't see eye to eye. PR has one job: promote, promote, promote. And some things I don't think were exactly ready for prime time. And they fought it all last year, and we struggled to get to this point of this year to get them out. And where do you kind of see the brand from launch till now?
So I think you're right. It was a video of the year. I mean, hello doggy. I had a big year with that video that came out. I mean, no doubt about that. That was nice. Benefit to the channel. So here's how things typically work. Typically, you get a vehicle gets debuted in auto show, and then about 3 to 4 months later, you have a first drive, and with the media, and then like 2 months after that, it's on dealer lots. So let's say auto shows in Detroit in January, as the big shows had been in the past. Things have changed now, but that's the way it was. Typically, your first drives are in March and April. Maybe they wait till June, and then on dealer lots in August, September.
Yeah.
So typically, that had been the way things had done. Now, Ram in 2019 destroyed everybody's expectations of that because they launched the 1500 in Detroit in January and had dealer lots in February, which is basically unheard of. I mean, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That was shocking. So if you look at that and you say, okay, well, the typical launch sequence is 6 months. And so you have Ford Bronco now being 6 months delayed. Is basically what it looks like on paper if you do all the math kind of on the way things typically look like. But then you throw in the COVID card, then you throw in the semiconductor card, then you throw in the fact that Ford has sucked for doing launches for a long time. They screwed up the Explorer launch. And so I tend to think that this is probably par for the course for Ford. I mean, they just, I don't know, whatever reason, they just cannot launch a vehicle, and I don't know if they unveil them too early, if they just not ready for the tool and dialing process or whatever. But I think it's par for the course. But the thing is, from their standpoint, they haven't really lost anything,
You don't think
right? They
they've
haven't
lost
lost any
sales?
energy.
You don't
Yeah,
think?
Jeep hasn't really. I mean, Jeep offered the Mopar edition to put the mirrors on the cowl because they realized people. You know, I always think of myself like I know the Jeep people pretty well. I know Jim Morrison. I know the people that run the CEO Jeep, and they gotta be like, what the hell, man? You guys never had problems before, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, my product rides like crap. Oh, my product doesn't the mirrors don't come with the doors. Where were you bitching before about this? Like all of a sudden, it's like all of a sudden my product sucks. It's like, wait a minute here. We've sold a lot of Wranglers over the years. What the hell?
Well, and they're having they're having a record year now, really.
Yeah,
And I'm sure some of that is Ford brought a lot of interest to this segment, and
Yeah.
Jeep's getting the benefits of it because of the delay of the launch.
Yeah, I just find it really funny. I was talking to Toyota guys about this a long time ago too. When the Ranger came back, Tacoma and the Colorado came back, and the Canyon, did this thing. Tacoma sales kept growing, and Toyota's like, we want more competitors. Our sales keep going up.
Yeah.
Like, come on, So it's this whole weird, phenomenon that goes back and forth with this stuff. But I just, I don't think yeah, I mean. Mobile Moto says 18 damn years to bring it back. I think that was a big. I think that is a story that needs more play.
Yes.
Not that it took them a year to bring it to marketplace, because I mean, come on, there has been some factors involved. I mean, you got to give them a little bit of break on that. But the fact that Ford executives screwed it up for 18 years,
didn't want to build this at all.
No, I mean, I think that to me is the news story, is how incompetent Ford leadership is. Look, I own a Ford.
Right.
Don't give me this anti-Ford. I mean, I bought a truck, and that Ford Power Boost was a pain in the butt to get. I mean, and so to me, I've always said this. I said, don't blame the guys in the line. I mean, you used to build vehicles for Nissan. Mm-hmm. I'm not blaming you on the line for the problems of this. To me, it goes way up the chain. Like, I don't understand. I know Joe Hendricks might have lost his job at Ford because of launch problems, maybe not. I think he should have lost his ass because of launch problems. I think he should have been fired day one.
Right.
I think they should keep firing people at Ford until they get somebody to figure it out, because, other brands don't have the same launch problems. They can put the marketplace. And so I think there's leadership is just, I don't understand why leadership can be so bad.
Well, and whether or not I didn't like the F-150 launch that they did a month or two right before Bronco, but guess what? They had them ready to sail pretty quick during COVID. And
if I were to toot my own horn here, which I mean,
well, that's the idea of the show, Tim.
I know, but I just hate that aspect. I got my Bronco, I got my F-150 because of who I knew. Like, there's guys that never got their F-150 because I was able to make some emails, and emails got pushed up the chain, and because of who I am, I was able to get my F-150. But I know guys that had to downgrade their order, because the thing is, it's like, it's taxes issue. That's the biggest thing. Taxes were a big issue for me. Mm-hmm. If I didn't buy it by end of December, I was going to be screwed. And I bought it December 28th, right?
Right. Well, I remember talking to you. Yeah, you were like getting panicky about, I got to get this.
Yeah, I had to do something. So, I mean, even then, I still talk to people to this day that they still haven't got their Power Boost on dealer lots. My dealer in town has 2 F-150s. They're 2021s. Mm-hmm. I mean, they can't get them either. So, I mean, it's like, that's semiconductor issues as well. But, I mean, to me, it's like they screwed up Explorer launch. They screwed up the F-150 launch. They screwed up the Bronco launch. I mean, semiconductors, rubber, all kind of stuff, those were maybe unforeseen issues, but still, who's in charge?
Yeah.
That's where it goes down to.
Well, if they built up so much good credit for that launch, man. That video was perfect. It didn't tell you anything other than a couple cool features, and they got people to drop money like crazy, not even knowing what they were dropping money on, basically. They were just dropping money. Ford learned from Tesla real quick. People will drop $100 down for anything now. Like anything. It doesn't matter. But
that drives me nuts, too. Please stop doing that.
Yes. But
don't give away free money.
But the thing that kind of got me was they all this good grace, and then by October they should have shut the pre-sales down, and they just kept going. And now they have a fiasco in their hand of whether people always assumed, okay, I'm a day one reservation, I'm a day two reservation. They thought, okay, this is my place in the line. And now you find out that there's people that had October reservations or already got their Broncos. And like there's things that just don't make sense on how Ford's handling it. And they had their the Bronco marketing guy was out there for a minute before December, like trying to talk the brand and cool it out. Then suddenly, I forget what he said, but suddenly you don't see him anymore because he wasn't telling people what they were doing. Ford's using their hired media of Bronco Nation, which I get along with those guys. I know what their purpose is. I get it. They just keep hyping and hyping and hyping this train, man. And now
I've seen you get along with these guys.
I know I've talked to David and those guys over there and personally met some of them. They're super nice people. They're doing a job. I get it. But I'm doing a job because I have to aggravate the situation every once in a while. But
I would say this an argument that even though you have to wait for it, it's damn good.
Yeah.
Like I would wait for the Bronco. I really would. I would wait for the Bronco. I would just because it is damn good, and there's nothing else. To me, nothing else in the market like it. And I've driven Wranglers. My brother's owned Wranglers. I mean, I've been on the road, but I think there's nothing else like it right now, and it's really a sweet spot in off-road and on-road and off-road performance for a non-truck bed, non-pickup off-road rig. I mean, it just I've been off-roading for multiple days in Lexus vehicles and Land Cruisers and all sorts of stuff, and to me, the Bronco is a throwback to the Toyota FJ. Mm-hmm. You know, because the Bronco's longer, it's going to do better with cafe standards.
Right.
But I mean, that's the throwback to that, and I would wait. I don't think that. I think F-150 Explorer, different customer, different expectations. But if I'm a Bronco buyer, like I know you are a Bronco buyer. Mm-hmm. I'd be fine waiting because I think it's that damn good.
Well, I have zero issue pushing mine back to a 22 because there has been a few quality problems come out recently of the plastics above the mirror just not kind of sagging, and everybody wants to be first till you're first, and then there's kinks to these things, man. You're the ones that are at these press events and stuff. Trust me, they went through a fine tooth comb on those to make sure they look great. But there's going to be some problems out there, and I'm more than happy to allow those problems to go away. But so I have a couple things. I know you're going to have to go in a minute, but there's a couple things. I know you were aggravated by all the noises this thing makes.
I got plenty of whiskey, Dave.
Oh well, I don't want to. We get about an hour with Tim on a show, and then it's like, hey man, I got tacos waiting or something.
No, I had dinner beforehand. I'm.
Oh well, then you know the show then.
All right.
But oh, he's pulling it up. Watch out now. So I know there was an issue with the typical Ford ding with the doors and some things.
Yeah, God, it drove me up a damn wall. And so I own the F-150 Power Boost, and that drives me up the wall too. I've in my videos talked about the chimes. The chimes are just freaking stupid. Yes. But I will tell you that I had some issues at different times. It was really random. Like 90% of the time is fine, but every once in a while I'd hop in the Bronco, turn it on, and the electronic parking brake would be on. Mm-hmm. I'd have to service the traction control. I had to service this, that. All these lights come up. I clear them all out, and I'm fine. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it could have been a weird sensor issue, or it could have been like a weird software issue, whatever. But it went away, and then it came back and went away. So. And you hate to be, I hate to be too critical on that stuff because this is a pre-production. Or it was a pre-production. It was like number 2 or number 3 of the first edition. So,
right.
I mean, I'm sure there's a quality issue there and there. My F-150 Power Boost has been fantastic, except it makes a popping noise in the passenger side mirror that I just need to get taken care of because it drives me up a wall. But small issues. But yeah, the chimes. I'm so sick of the damn chimes, and especially this. Doors off, you turn it on, it'll tell you the vehicle's on and the doors are not attached before we put the seatbelt on. Well, and I'm just like, I understand in the city if you're gonna go for a drive, whatever. But there's many times I'm backing out of my garage, gonna park it in my driveway. I'm gonna back around the corner. I'm gonna go run my trash out, whatever. I'm not gonna wear a damn seatbelt.
My Jeep
Going
does the
50
same thing
feet.
though. That my Gladiator will do the same thing. It won't let
Oh,
you put it in gear if your seatbelt's not engaged. I'm like,
yeah, I mean,
I sometimes like you're saying, sometimes you just need to back it up a minute. Like uh, it boggles my mind all the safety crap, and I'm sure that's not. I'm sure that's getting into federal BS more than anything, right?
yeah, I mean, there's that aspect of it, and so I'm a father of three, and I do like the fact that it reminds people to put seatbelts on. I'm a big fan of that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
seatbelts are good. There's no argument there, but just every single time clearing off chimes to be able to move just got annoying, and
Right.
and it just was too much.
Well, welcome Outdoor with the Morgans. When are you guys going to subscribe to my channel? You come in every once in a while, but so quick question. He says, and I know that I had a super chat too that I'll get to in just a second. He says, are they actually shipping any hardtops? Yes, they are shipping hardtops. The my inside source at Webestos, or however you say the damn name of that company, they're amping it up. They're amping it up, and my source within Ford says by August they're at full production with this thing. So I know there was some rumors that they were going to open up a second top factory for this, but that's all rumors, man. They have a plant now. They're just cranking them out now. I know Wild Track is weird because it's hard top only, and dealers are now getting Wild Tracks with just soft tops because Ford's put a priority on its customers, and I commend them for that, Tim. They are stopping hardtops going to dealer demos and all that stuff because they know we need to make customers happy, and dealers are just happy to get a demonstrator. But
Yeah.
speaking of that, so you said you took this to the dealership, and is this the first one they've seen then, or did they get a trainer come through and?
Yeah, so this is the first one I saw. So my friend Frank, we did the build and price online. Because A75 computer is a little bit of a thing, but also he didn't know the packages. So I sat down with him and we went through the packages, made sure he had the packages he wanted,
Mhm.
and put a deposit down. I mean, this guy, I'm going through the exterior packages. He has credit card out. He's
So
like holding his
you
credit card.
sat with him to do this?
Yeah, I sat with him and helped him
Oh,
double it.
nice,
Yeah, he
nice.
credit card with him. And so within 2
He's
minutes,
just got it out like I just
yeah,
want to
he's
buy
like,
it.
yes, yes, and I want, buy this. And so then he was like, all right, so he put it in, and dealer called us like 2 minutes later, like literally, because I knew they would, right? Dealers are hot up for sales.
Right.
And he goes, I'm driving around one right now, and I'll be in a few minutes. To the guy on the phone.
Yeah.
And so I didn't think anything of it. We pull in, and the sales staff is like outside waiting for us.
Yeah.
And they made me park on this above the pavement, and it's like the special spot, and they all came out and took photos of the whole thing.
Oh, I bet you were
So
a hero to that dealership
oh yeah, they had never seen one. They'd never seen one in person.
because you're
And the
kind of in a
dealer,
smaller town too, right? So you're not a
yeah,
priority to get some of that stuff.
the entire county is 100,000 people. My town is like 5,000. The nearest town nearby is 20,000. I mean, we're in a small area. They've never seen it, and their dealer demo is going to be here I think it's the 22nd or something like that. They're going to be so they don't even have one yet. So I gave a bunch of people rides like that, and so yeah, that was an interesting experience. And then I somehow didn't select the Sasquatch package which he wanted. So they had to go in and change that. While they're doing that, I gave a bunch of people rides. So it kind of
Right.
worked out great. I mean, it was fine, but yeah.
Well, they better sub to your channel.
They do. I think they
If you
do.
gave a ride, you should you should have your phone out with sign in, sub to the channel.
No, so what was really funny about it was this last weekend was what's called Oregon Trail Days,
Mhm.
and I legitimately live on Oregon Trail. Like,
Right.
I mean, I'm on the Oregon Trail. Like 50 years ago and 100 years ago, there was wagon ruts in my backyard. I mean, that's where I live. And so big celebration, parade downtown, Hot Rods and Custom show the night before. And I was thinking about taking the Bronco down for the show,
Right.
but then the skies opened up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not gonna take it down, get rained down, that kind of stuff. And then doing the parade, people asked me, they're like, "Why don't you take it to the parade?" And I was like, I'm not gonna do that. But we have it's a festival thing. We went to our show, bought some stuff for the house. Then we had the carnival,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're sitting in the Ferris wheel with the boys, my two boys with me, and we're looking out, and we can see people like walking around the Bronco on top of the carnival. And so I'm like trying to take a photo of this guy checking it out, and I can't take it out, and I couldn't get it. But then we go to leave, and we go up this parking lot road. They always, field parking lot, right? And the stakes in the ground, whatever. And the guy walks up and he goes, "Hey, look," he goes, "You have a sick ride, but they want you to go the other way if you're leaving." so I had to turn around and go back the other way and leave. But yeah, I mean, there was one point, and I actually did a Facebook post about this. I was driving around downtown, and they were setting up Oregon Trail Days. And I mean, it's again a community 5,000, and they get probably 50,000 in town. I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the biggest in the area. And I'm driving around, and one of the things I learned with this Bronco was that my hat situation is a concern because airflow. So I was doing the backward hat thing, right? Because
hey, man, come on now.
Right, but then the headrest was a battle, So a lot of times in my lap, and I'm driving around like this, and I'm sitting at a stoplight. I'm heading to the bank or something, and I look over and there's like 10 17-year-old kids that are staring at me. And finally, they're building like a apparatus to do a stage. Is what they're building. And the guy who's like the older guy carpenter, he looks up, he's too. So there's all these people looking at me, and I'm like, I feel like some like hot chick going on right now with a little Jeep driving around, something like this. And so I turn on Main Street, and I'm not cruising Main Street, but I'm going a little bit down the road, right? And this guy in this like Ford F-250, like older F-250, he literally goes like this. He's like, and he about damn near falls out of his truck on Main Street, swerving in traffic, trying to see the Bronco as I'm driving by.
That's great.
And so I mean, that happened all week long. I mean, I had guys that were going crazy. I parked it outside because I was power washing my house, and the farmer was cutting up his crop across the street, and I kept having people stop by and doing pictures of it, sitting on the side of the sidewalk. And I finally decided to move it inside the garage because it becomes such a stopping point. I was concerned about accidents at that point.
Right.
I was like,
well, there was, I think it was Canada. Somebody in Canada had theirs for a day and it was stolen.
Oh yeah.
Like, and that has to be like a weird concern now too, because this is the hottest vehicle. It's hard to get, and they're expensive. If you find one on a dealership lot right now, they're way too expensive. Mm-hmm. And that's the next part is theft on these things, man.
Yeah, I was concerned about that too, but a small town life, I wasn't that concerned.
Right.
So, but I made a lot of jokes about this. So I was like with my kids. My 8-year-old got in, first time I ever got in, and he gets in, and I did a video, but it was a little late, but I said, "Hey, buddy," I said, "Where's the doors at?" And he sits like this, he looks out the door, and he goes, "Well, I don't know. Where'd they go?" And he starts pounding on the body panel, like, "It's not here, Dad. The door's gone, Dad. What's up with the door?" He's just freaking out, so I did a video on that, and totally freaked him out. But so, like, we pull in the garage, and I was like, "Hey, guys, watch your doors when we get out." They were like, "Wait, what?" And then you have the key fob, right? So you have the key fob in your hand, and you like get out, and I'm like, all right, I'm lock the doors. Click.
Yeah.
Right? There's no doors, right?
I do that.
I mean, I had a lot of fun with it, but I mean, I never left it for very long without eyesight near it.
Yeah.
Because again, like we talked about earlier, only journalists in the area that has one. First one to come out the door. I don't want something to happen to it. I don't want to screw everybody else off. I don't want them not have a chance to drive the Bronco because it's pretty badass. And so I was very much aware of that. And then, I mean, I got some cool parking spots where people, but the thing is, people, my wife was with me one time. She's like, I'm going to go with they're looking at me, not the Bronco, but we know what they're looking at. I mean, it was that kind of thing. It was like, it was that kind of experience driving around. And I have a Mercedes-Benz AMG CLA 45 in the driveway, and
it's a school bus, by the way.
It's like taxi car yellow, but there a lot of reasons behind getting the vehicle. But the simplest answer is that I'm 180 miles from Denver. They do rotations of vehicles. They want to bring up 6 or 8 at a time. They didn't have anything for me this week, so they put a car in instead, and that way they can get the rotation going. So they're sending 2 guys up one car.
Yeah.
But I have this Mercedes-Benz AMG, and I will tell you that the Bronco got more looks than this Mercedes did. Yeah. And it will in my area. I mean, that's part of the equation too, but it just was funny to go from the Bronco to this and have such a different response.
Well, so did your dealer tell you how many reservations they have? Have they
Mm,
talked about that? Is it going to be somewhat popular in your area?
they haven't really talked about it. I think I don't think he's. I could call him. I mean, he's a nice guy. I talked
Yeah.
to him, but he didn't really talk about it. I want to say that the thing that has hurt this area, and this area is not one that's made the internet very often.
Right.
You know, I'm a YouTuber, right? And most of my neighbors have no idea what I do,
Right.
right? I mean, just because it's like this is not what they do. Is YouTube's not a thing for them.
Right.
We're still a cable TV kind of culture in this
Mhm.
area. I think launching the Bronco Sport hurt them in this area.
Oh God, yeah. I think Bronco Sport hurt them in a lot of areas because it's created confusion within people. Go, oh, that's not the Bronco. Jeep guy especially, and Jeep guy. There's going to be lines drawn in the sand now between Jeep and Bronco,
Yeah, right.
but potential guys that you could have stole away from Jeep see the Sport and they're like, well, that's a joke, and they
Yep.
pull up, they get a picture next to that thing, and it's already created this bad kind of the
Yeah,
Bronco
and
sucks.
especially so the dealer demo is going to help. It's going to take a while. It's things in my area move slow. I
Yeah.
mean, in rural areas they do. I mean, that's what just happened. So, I don't think there's much of a waiting list. I think when he gets a dealer demo in and parks in the corner, because the sales manager, and he's a friend of mine, and he's like, man, can you just leave this here this week? He just like park up in the corner, you know. And so then he like told me he gets the Badlands in like I said a couple weeks. He's gonna let me
Mhm.
borrow it for a day because I mean he knows the potential what I can do with my channel
Yeah.
and views stuff like that. But it's like that's gonna take a while. I don't think orders are gonna be that strong for a while. And the other thing too is like the median income where I live is like 35,000
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
And so I mean, we're used cars all day long.
Right.
I get so many questions about. All right, so what if I were to buy a used SUV for like 10 grand? Which one should I go with? I mean, I get that question all day long because
Right.
that's what the realities we're at. I think if I was in a different area, different zip code, different,
Maybe Denver.
yeah, I think Denver they have a lot more. Because Denver, I think that lifestyle fits pretty well. And if you go off roading with a Bronco in Denver, there's a lot of places you can go. I mean, there's a lot of trails that are
Oh
wide
yeah.
enough in the mountains.
Oh yeah. So I want to get to this real quick. Jack Sharon said I drove a 2-door and a 4-door Sasquatch 2.7 liter at the off rodeo. The 2-door is, let's see, is capable as the other. The 2-door was a bit more nimble. I'm curious. I am curious about driving a 2-door in these. I think the 2-door sales wise, if you only have to look at Jeep for 2-door sales versus 4-door sales, I think that the 2-door, I think they keep making it, but I don't think it stays around like I think they limit options with what you can get with 2 doors versus 4 doors. But Jack, hopefully you had a good off rodeo. Tim, where do you stand with that? So I know you had a journalist down there covering the press event, which used the
Yep. Yep.
same course as what consumers can go down there and do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you stand with like Ford can't seem to get these products out to its customers, but yet they're almost allowing customers to come pay them to drive these things for a day with off rodeo, or that's how I see it.
Great business. I mean,
Right.
you get people to pay you to drive a vehicle you can't buy quite yet. Hell yeah, I'll sign up for that all day long. Getting back to 2-door and 4-door, I think there's going to be a constant discussion. I'd like to drive a 2-door. I've only had experience in a 4-door.
Mhm. I think the
I've
2-door
done
nails the look of the classic Bronco. Nails it.
right, and I've driven 2-door Wranglers versus 4-door Wranglers. I've been on that road as well. I, I think that the thing that people forget about this all the time is that I think 2-door with shorter wheelbase is better for enthusiasts who want to rock crawl,
Hmm.
and 4-door is so much better for Ford as a company to meet cafe standards.
Yeah. We'll
And
get into that a little bit because maybe people don't understand
right,
why they need to do that.
so cafe is corporate average fuel economy. It was come out in the 1970s by Jimmy. Was it Carter? I think Carter was president in the 1970s.
Yep.
It basically dealt with the idea that cars had to get better fuel economy because at the time we're going through the oil crisis with Iran,
Right.
and the gasoline stations were way behind. And so that came out. So it was mandating automakers bring vehicles to marketplace with better fuel economy to have less reliance on foreign oil. If you remember the Bush years, you hear foreign oil all the time. It's always been this political thing, and so cafe has always been kind of a big issue over the years. It's basically saying, there's got to be a balance here between you can't build two-door, 1980s white Broncos that OJ drove with gas guzzlers all the time because it doesn't benefit everybody, and it does make sense, right? So if we all got better fuel economy, we'd pay less money at the pump, which is what happened when last year when Trump was in office. Now Biden's up. It doesn't matter. It was commodity-based pricing, which is what gasoline prices are, and people were driving less. Fuel economy went down, and fuel prices went down, which is what commodities do. And so what's happening now is that in, I think it was 2004 or 6, it was Obama's first term, and they recalculated the CAFE, which always happens. So the CAFE is a combination between the EPA and NHTSA that look at the current marketplace, and they come up with these goals. And Obama set some pretty outlandish goals. I drink one. That's fine. That's what cafe is meant for. Mm-hmm. It's meant for building. It's like a pipe dream. If you had the pie in the sky, you went for this pie in the sky, and he thought that more EVs would sold than they are, and he thought people would buy based on their fuel economy needs. He was wrong, but that's okay because he made projections, and the EPA made projections. That's what just happens, and so that's okay.
Sure.
But part of that rule that came out was they recalculated the way the economy was done based on footprint. Footprint is basically the square footage of a vehicle. You look at the overall size of the vehicle, and you do, footprint. So the idea is that vehicles that have larger footprint don't have the same fuel economy of a smaller vehicle, right? So, and that makes sense, right? So it's like you have a go-kart.
Yeah.
A go-kart's so small versus like a Tahoe, you'd expect the go-kart to get better fuel economy than you would a Tahoe. That's what you expect. And so look at like the Toyota FJ Cruiser did not have the longer wheelbase of, say, the Ford Bronco. It got killed. Consumer demand was down for a little bit on that as well, but also cafe. It couldn't meet fuel economy standards. And fuel economy standards mean if you don't meet the fuel economy standards, you pay a fine for every vehicle you sell. Well, you do not want to be that engineer in charge of that program paying a fine every time you sell a vehicle.
Right, because when they have an idea for a vehicle, and the idea, you draw it up, and then your bean counters get involved and go, okay, this is the practicality of building that. And like you're saying, if the footprint doesn't match, then sometimes things get axed that maybe shouldn't get axed. And
right. And that's it. That's a huge issue for automakers because there's companies like somebody said Chrysler, his penalty for every Hellcat. There's Chrysler historically, Jaguar, Chrysler have been the top two who pay fines of millions of dollars every year for being in business. Imagine that. Imagine you are in business and every year you pay millions of dollars in fines for being in business.
Yeah.
So that's why Ford will, unbeknownst to us, limit the amount of two-doors being built from a cafe standpoint because the two-door should get better fuel economy than the four-door will.
Tim, I have to stop you there because this is the weirdest thing I've ever gotten. So I just got a super chat from Carlos, who, thank you guys, the super chats help a ton. But the super chat is a shout out to Johnny's Car Care and Reviews in the chat. He's like, love you guys for the Bronco talk. That has to be the weirdest super chat I've ever gotten for somebody to mention another person in the chat. So, and I want to say this. I don't think you know who Johnny Car Care is. Johnny, congratulations on hitting that 1,000 sub mark, buddy, and getting monetized, man. Tim knows what a big deal that is. Like me and Tim, trust me, my old Nissan Nation channel, like that would have probably never been monetized had it not been for Tim's guidance. But so congratulations, Johnny, on that. So the beeping of the doors kind of drove you crazy. Was there? I know you had like your video today, the 5, and I want everybody to go watch the video. I'm not giving everything away, but what was something that you didn't put in that video that you liked, and something that you didn't like? Because I know you struggled with finding things you didn't like.
I struggled with things that I didn't like. I mean, there was lots of things that I have Timisms. You hate to put Timisms, all that kind of stuff, but
there are opinions. We all have them.
Flack over that, but things that I will say this: things I didn't like is I'm too damn short. My butt.
Wait, we're about the same height, man. Come on now.
My butt, those 35s doesn't get right in the seat.
Right.
So I have to hop in every time. If you watch the video closely, in the first 20 seconds, when I hop in the vehicle,
Wait, I can break this down real quick. We can go
you
frame
can
by
play
frame.
it. You can play it. If you play that first 20 seconds, you will see me hop in the vehicle and ignore the Bronco side handle.
Well, I noticed getting into that, and you mentioned it in your video. I did notice that today when I was getting into these things, that handle is in the worst spot ever. I get
That's
it probably
terrible.
for balance. It probably looked cool to be there. Offers nothing to get in a vehicle. You'll grab
No.
that steering wheel before you'll grab that.
And so if you watch the video, I grabbed steering wheel. And the reason I grabbed steering wheel was I need more leverage to get in the vehicle. Front license plate. Look, I didn't look at the front license plate, John. John's here. John brought me all this whiskey. Thank John. We talked about the whiskey tonight. All this stuff. I want to talk about John. Ram pass cafe standards with the Hellcat option. They don't. Ram pays a fine. FCA pays a fine for everything. Yeah, they don't. I didn't look at front license plate. John picks on me a little bit because my F-150 Power Boost does not have a front license plate on it, and I need to do it, but I plan on selling it next month. So I don't have a whole lot of drive to. I don't want to be screwing holes in my bumper. I thought about doing some zip ties, but I haven't done it. So that'd be the one thing that I would not that I didn't. I talked about a little bit, but I didn't make like a big Timism about is getting in and out really wore me down. It really did. It just it's and I think I want to drive the Badlands because it's a smaller tire.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah,
that may be a
33
big
inch.
yeah, there may be a big difference in me getting in and out. But I can tell you that the Bronco 35s, I can't imagine 37s. I would not be able to get in that vehicle very easily. Getting in and out was definitely a pain. Definitely a pain. Not as bad as Mercedes-Benz AMG CLA 45. It's like a Corvette. I've fallen in the damn thing. It's uncomfortable.
I was gonna say you're used to the luxury life of hopping up in these things. You're not used to you having to go down for these vehicles.
I like hopping in. Hopping in's easier for me than falling down.
All right, so Tim, I have the video of you getting of trying to get in this thing.
Yes, you can play it. It's like the first 20 seconds of the video. I did a weird kind of intro to this because I was trying, creatively trying different things, but I would say that's one thing I didn't make a mountain out of molehill about. I just kind of those things.
There. So I've got it paused right now where you're grabbing the handle. The concern too with the bigger tires is wearing the side bolstering out of those seats real quick.
I mean,
You're going to slide because you're going to constantly slide across the seats to get into the vehicle instead of kind of dropping down into it. And if you get like this had the leather package and all that, you're just going to wear that stuff and it's going to look worn real quick.
Yeah, right there where I touch it, you can tell that's going to be so. I like the handle. I like the design of it. It's like a gun. It's like the gun handle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of that. But
did you want to shoot a deer while you were grabbing it or something?
Right. But I never used that to get in. I never did. It was just too awkward.
When
and
you commented that you couldn't have it up on the pillar because of the airbag.
Yep, airbag's right there. So I get it. I mean, I understand it, but it just wasn't,
It'd be nicer to be here for me, for my size, but the airbag is here, so I get it.
But
I would not buy this edition with 35s because I just can't get in and out of it very easily.
Man, you're not the fun guy. Come on now, the fun guy would buy 35s, Tim.
No, but I have a little more gray in my beard than some guys do.
Hey, I'm a lot older than you, man. I don't want to hear that. I will say, so you felt like that handle, though, was pretty sturdy because a big complaint of the center handle, which you probably didn't use because it's more of a passenger thing, was that it is wobbly. And people are kind of moaning about that of like, oh, it just kind of, when you go to use it, it moves a little bit. Well, guys, this isn't steel. This is plastics, and they will, if you pull on them, it's only mounted by like 3 bolts, I think, so it's going to move a little bit.
I didn't, my wife grabbed it a few times because of my driving style.
Right.
So I don't think it was, and I grabbed it once or twice. It didn't, maybe that's just a situation where it needs to be tightened a little bit more. I'm like, my side mirror issue rattling in the F-150 Power Boost, people tell me it's just a tighten the bolt a little bit tighter.
Right.
The factory wasn't quite to spec tighten the bolt. I mean, and from a factory first builds, now it's not like So we were supposed to do 75 foot-pounds torque, not 70. It's just a setting on the gun. I mean, it just happens to be got screwed up there along the road somewhere, but it's a small issue. But that would be the one that I would say that was something I didn't talk about. Something I liked that I didn't talk about. That'd be interesting.
Hey guys, while you're doing that, I only have 31 likes on this video, and I have 139 people in here. So either I have 139 people that are just like,
wow.
these guys are just okay. But guys, if you smash that like button, when you do that, all that does is just people that do not know the channels, like my channel or Tim's channel, it just redirects YouTube to say, hey, if you like this Bronco content, maybe you like these guys. So if you would do that, I greatly appreciate that. Sorry, Tim, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, you kind of got my. I didn't realize there's that many people watching. Hi guys. I'm trying to think of something I liked that I didn't mention. Somebody commented I didn't talk much about the powertrain as much as I should have, and I kind of made a whole segment about that. So that was kind of interesting.
Johnny's Car Care asked, did it have the side steps basically? And no, this had rockers, rock rails.
Yeah, I would have probably gone. It's weird though. So like in a situation with that vehicle, side steps are one of those awkward moments. Like with the Colorado, I don't know if you've noticed the Colorado Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been spent time with these, the side steps are in a weird spot. Maybe Gladiator is a good idea there. This too. So you don't have side steps in a Gladiator at all, do you?
No, I have rock rails.
You have rock rails.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a weird height for you, isn't it? Like if you had side steps, you would step up, then bend down and go in.
It would be a lot like getting in the old. You remember the old aluminum steps that you used to put on the F-250s and stuff that kind of hung lower? It would kind of feel like that.
Yeah, it's a weird situation where like you don't. The height is weird for us guys who are average height. That you have a problem. It's a weird spot where you don't know if you want to use them or not. And I found that with the Colorado and Canyon when I get press loans with the side steps on them, I don't know if. But I don't want them lower because then you lose the ground clearance off-roading.
Yep.
You don't want them at all because you lose the ground clearance off-roading. But then you kind of need them because it's this awkward height situation that happens. And so it's a weird situation that I don't know if there's any right solution. Retractable steps are great for that solution because they kind of go away.
But then on a trail, you can beat those up and they're expensive to replace.
Yeah, well, no, not true.
The thing
I didn't mention, which was really because of YouTube, was I didn't mention the radio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard too.
I haven't figured out the trick yet to how to review the radio with non-copyright music.
Right. Well, so what you do is you load it up on your phone. You go over to Audio Jungle, buy a couple of songs, and then you can play copyrighted music or copy-free right music that way. I will say on the steps too, guys. I'm not a big, like the cheap steps that you'll pay $700 for from Ford if you need side steps. Give it a few months, and aftermarket will come up with actual rock rails that stick out. And for off-roading especially, I like more protection. So if the rock rails stick out that you can use for a step, in a side impact alone, that's just more, it mounts to the frame, and it's just more protection for you and your family. So think twice before you just buy those cheap aluminum steps and look at some real rock rails. They'll cost you about $1,000, but that's how I always look at it.
I would say the only problem with those rock rails that I've used in the past, because I've used different vehicles like that, is they get slippery.
They do get slippery, yes.
That's the one thing you have to be careful of. And I'm sorry for those who are older who have more mobility than I do. I didn't mean to cause an ageism going on. We have people coming, they're 49 or 42. I understand. I'm just saying that, the days of me, climbing out of cars or Corvettes and stuff and things like that, I just don't like it anymore. My body doesn't do it, so that's what I'm saying.
Well, Tim needs to get on that elliptical is what he's saying. The other Tim Davis says, can I speak to the rock rails being mounted to the body and not the frame? So this is not new. The rock rails on the Jeep, they've done it for a long time that mount to the body. Ford says that you could drop the whole vehicle weight on these rock rails and it's not going to screw up anything. I'm personally not a fan of that. I would rather them be mounted to the frame, but that was Ford's decision. And I'm sure it's a production issue more than anything. It's easier to bolt those. They're mounted just straight up. So it's just easy to bam, bam, and they're mounted and you move on down the road versus trying to do something to the frame.
I don't think it, I don't know how to tell the story.
Wait,
Yeah, well,
there's nobody listening, Tim. It's all
yeah,
right.
you're right. There's nobody listening. I will say that I don't know if it really makes any damn bit of difference. I had the Ford Bronco Sport, and I took it up the same trail I did the Toyota Tacoma like the week before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a nasty climb out of a farm field. And I just kind of like it because I can put my drone on the other side and I fly. It's like it comes out of the field.
Right.
And I end up burying the Ford Bronco Sport in the hillside.
Oh, I know you text me about this. Yes.
I did, and I didn't. In my defense, I didn't realize it had rained so badly a couple days before. So the hard dirt I have at Tacoma was now a really soft dirt at the Bronco Sport. And this is your behind the scenes that happens in my world. So I get it free to bring my power boost up. We hook up the tow strap. We pull it free. It's not a big deal. It comes out. No big deal. Nothing damaged. Look it over. No issues. 2 days later, they go to pick it up on a Tuesday. Look at it. And I bent the tow hook.
Whoops.
On the passenger side. And they both stick out like this, and one was like this a little bit, and I was like, that just looks funky. I crawled underneath, and I was like, it just isn't quite there. So, call a fleet guy. He's like, all right, cool, I'll take care of it. Which is what happens. So if you damage something, they fix it. So, excuse me, I go to do my video, and I'm reading the press release of doing my video because I want to make sure I get the details right. Because heaven forbid I say a 341 rear axle instead of 342 rear axle.
Right.
I'll never hear the end of it, so I make sure. So I'm doing voiceover. In the press release, the Bronco Sport, it says that the tow hooks on the front are bolted in and reinforced on the frame, which makes them sturdier than your other non-bolted frame tow hooks.
Right.
And I read this out my voice recorder. I'm reading, whatever I get set up, and I had to stop and record that a couple times. And I ended up not even. I don't think I even said it because I couldn't even because it was like that is a load of bull. So
right.
It turns out that all I had done was I had elongated the bolt, so the bolt got kind of pulled out of joint a little bit longer, and that's what caused the tow hook to move a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just laugh about the stuff that's like, well, if we bolted the frame, it'd be a lot stronger. Because I'm like,
well, for one, it doesn't have a frame really. So
I was like, yeah, it doesn't have a frame, but then I pulled it and it wasn't quite right. So and that's a situation that 90% of the time never even happens. Nobody experiences that.
Yeah.
And the guy just took a bolt and swept it out. I mean, it wasn't like a major repair. It wasn't anything wrong with it.
Right.
But yeah, that's just stuff that makes me laugh. That in my world, we really read this stuff, and I remember years ago when we were starting out, there's a guy named Bob Hegblum, and Bob Hegblum was about 6'8", and just wide-shouldered dude. I think he was 6'8", he may have been 6'4", big guy, whatever. For me, 5'7", and I was doing the Ram press conference in Chicago, Detroit, whatever the two, and the new Lamborghini Limited came out, and he read this whole thing about it. And I remember walking up to him and saying, I said, I don't know if you're talking about a truck or a Chanel handbag. Because, this is what press releases are. It's all these bullet points of all this garbage that you just have to filter through and figure out, what is most important. And at the end of the day, it's like, what are customers going to care about? And you take half of the stuff and toss it and go, what they're going to, care about this. Oh, okay. Because at one point in the truck world, we were arguing about the quality of material on the headrests, on the headliner.
Mm-hmm.
There was ongoing press release debate about who had the best headliner material.
Yeah. Well, I am amazed. Me and you were in some groups together with some auto journalists, and I'm always amazed that guys who are used to being pampered a little bit, the things that they'll find to fuss about versus more common people like me and you that use these vehicles more, I think, as they're intended, that we'll find things that aggravate us, and then they get a little frou-frou-y with some things that kind of like that they just nitpick.
Yeah.
But
I reached out to you before I did my Bronco video, so to make sure that my non-likes were legitimate non-likes.
Mm-hmm.
I get some crap sometimes because I pick out some things that nobody cares about this. And I'm like, you know what? I talk to truck customers all the time, and they do care about this stuff. And I am a truck customer. I buy trucks every year.
Yeah.
My plan is to buy a truck every year, a new truck, and so I am this kind of customer. But I just think to myself, driving the Bronco. Another thing was the rear seat belts would rattle with the doors and the roof off.
Yeah.
And all I thought about when I drove it, in my video I said this, I want to take a clothespin and just clothespin that together.
Yeah.
I don't know that Ford can do anything about it. I don't know there's an engineering they can do. I've been in their tunnels. I've been in the laboratory. I've been like deep in the bowels of Ford Motor Company in Dearborn, Michigan. I've been
Sounds
down.
dirty.
They do a lot of crazy stuff. They look at and they measure the glare off the dash on the people's eyes. They have like lights. They do a lot of stuff with this.
Well, you know who doesn't do that? Nissan, because they put these damn chrome vents in there, and the glare will hit the chrome AC vent right in your eye.
You're right. I've been around long enough to go to these places, and I do this stuff, and I know what they can do, what they can't do. And you look at this stuff like, how would they ever fix a doors off, roof off, side wind, rear passenger on both sides, along the
right.
B-pillar there.
Well, at some point you have to make compromises too. Like you want a vehicle with no roof, basically. Well, guess what? It's not always going to be quiet.
Yeah, so that's what I think too. Like Ashley said, to make clips to hold them together better. I think so. I think aftermarket makes a clip, and so you put it on there. But I think from a Ford Motor Company standpoint, they really, they can do an accessory for it, but the majority, they can't ship it that stuff on there.
Yeah.
They can't ship it with that. They say, you know what, if that's a problem for you, we offer an accessory, we offer things you can buy, because at the end of the day, they're trying to meet the 75 to 85 percentile. And there'll always be that one guy in that realm that just is like, he'll talk about things that people don't care about, or nobody, it's like, for me, it's like, I heard it, but then I turned up the radio. I was like, it didn't matter. But I could see it's like I could see doing that. I could see where that's an issue going on. I just really try. I really try hard to focus on things that are legitimate, that I don't like, and I think that consumers wouldn't like, because I always put myself in the place where, if I were to buy this, what would be my issues with it?
Well, I feel like after watching your social media, your wife may want you to buy one of these at some point, because your whole family was having a blast in these things.
Yeah, we were. We had a really good time. Does this come up a few times in the comments? Like, so my wife's Mazda, we have a 6.5 for her, and it's a lease. So I lease the vehicle because, argue about lease all you want, but here's the thing. Here's my philosophy on it. My kids are 11 and 8. When the lease on the Mazda's up, they will be 12 and 9. They're boys. They're growing like crazy, right? So I want a bigger vehicle. Mm-hmm. We'll probably go Tahoe Yukon at that point, right? Bigger vehicle because they're getting taller.
Right.
And then in 3 years after that, he'll be 15 going 16 or something in that realm. He'll have his own vehicle. We'll probably go a little bit smaller. And then 3 years after that, both boys will be gone, and then we'll have to do an even smaller vehicle, right? So
right.
And I was in Dallas one time trying to catch a flight. My wife had no start issue or something like that on her 2001 Honda CR-V, and I'm in a rainstorm in Dallas and the plane delayed, and she's got any problems with her vehicle. The kids aren't getting picked up from school. I will tell you this: the lease on the Mazda is $300 a month.
Right.
That's the easiest money I pay every month.
Sure.
Because it's peace of mind, and I understand people get frustrated about leases, but for me, I travel a lot, and so if I can have peace of mind while I'm traveling, great. And so I told her, I said, look, she's going to be, she's 40, she'll be 45. I said, okay. I said, think about this. If we lease until the boys are gone, that's 8 years. You'll be 55 at 54 at that point. Let's say around that point. So how many more years do you plan on driving? You're 54. Do you plan on driving for 20 more years? That's 7 more leases. Or 6, I did math. What do you want to do?
And most people truly never own the vehicles.
No. The average ownership of a car is 3 years. Average ownership of a truck is 5.5 years.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why not just lease another one? And I need to get better about doing videos on her vehicle, because then I could write off her vehicle. So next time she buys a vehicle, it's going to be a business expense.
Well, you just talked about it, Tim. You just talked about it.
Yeah, so. That qualifies for IRS. So I'm like, I'll lease with her the rest of her life because I'll always buy something, and then eventually when the kids are gone and she doesn't drive to work every day, she'll just drive whatever I have because I have press loans too.
Yeah.
There'll be a one vehicle household in with our vehicles. So it's like, I just leasing is terrible except for these situations that happen. And so, that's what we talk about all the time. It's like, so her lease is up next year. And the boys were talking about this. The boys were like, all right, well, what are we gonna do, Mom? Right.
Right.
And so, and I looked at both boys and said, I said, you guys need to start paying attention. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you need to pay attention to what goes in my driveway because these are something that you're going to be in next time. And they're like, oh, really? They're sitting now to actually pay attention. And so the wife's paying attention. She thought the Bronco Sport was not the right vehicle for her. Mm-hmm. The Bronco was better, but I don't know. She could do a Bronco. She could be a Bronco girl.
Yeah.
She could do it. Her problem is that she carries around some my wife is deaf without her hearing aids in. And so she works for school districts and kids who have hearing losses. And she carries around a lot of audiology equipment that's very sensitive to rain. So, I mean, she has some concerns about that kind of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And again, people are commenting about leasing. Leasing is not for everybody. Not for everybody at all.
Right.
And pay cash, what are you going to do? It's a depreciating asset. It's just, in my situation, it's just a different aspect of it. It's just a lot different idea. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, what's going to happen? What are we going to buy next time? I mean, here's the thing I learned with automotive, and something I didn't realize, is that if you want to have the most safe vehicle for your family ever, go always lease a luxury vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
Luxury vehicles always get the latest safety technology. They always get all the bells and whistles, and that stuff matters. Anything you see in a Nissan Sentra or a Toyota Camry, that came from a Mercedes-Benz or a Lexus or what have you. I mean, so if you want to have the best vehicle that's most safe for your family, go get a luxury vehicle. And I'm at the age and I'm at the status of my life to say, I want my family secure. I want them in reliable transportation. And I don't want to think about the fact that my wife's car broke down.
Yeah. Or you're nowhere to deal with it.
Yeah. And I want to make sure she has adaptive cruise control. She has more airbags than she needs. I want to make sure that she has the advanced emergency braking. I mean, those are things that matter to me that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Let's see. Michael asks, are they building the hardtop still? Yes, they're still building hardtops. Now, depending on how fast you want your Bronco, the soft top's still the faster option. But Tim, where do you stand with manufacturing on this? So Ford's had the hardtop problem. They brought in a manufacturer. Obviously, COVID, and the timing couldn't have been worse to finalize product to get it ready for launch with COVID and everything. And then Michigan locked down, and it was hard to find labor. This company's not new to building tops. Like, they build them for the C8 Vet. They build the center top for that. I kind of feel like by Christmas, the tops is a non-issue anymore. What do you think? What's your pulse with Ford and where the hardtop should be?
I want to say that you and I talked about this, where that Ford is sending engineers to work with the supplier to build up, supply, and that's very common. One of the things that has made Toyota successful is that they are jerks to the suppliers, but the suppliers love them because Toyota will go in and they will give them millions of dollars in loans to build their business up and to make sure they're producing stuff right, and they will help them in production. They'll help them, and I think that is one of the most underreported things in the industry, and I talk about that quite a bit, is that supplier automaker relationships are huge, and I think that's going to be not an issue going forward. But I think the bigger issue is that Ford needs to really do a better job with supplier relationships, and really invest in suppliers.
Is some of that complacency because they're like Ford, GM, and Dodge and all them are so embedded in Michigan? All their little subs are right there, and then you start bringing in, Webasto or whatever, however you say it, is a German company. You're bringing in companies, kind of outsiders. Is that some of that is they're just not used to dealing with companies that might not be feeding off them already?
Oh yeah, I grew up in Flint area, not Flint. I didn't drink the water. AC Delco was a huge brand there. AC Delco was almost bigger than GM at some point. I mean,
Right.
that the suppliers. The thing I was shocked about was, so I'm going to go down a little bit on this. Is that Ford talked a lot about not taking the bailout. Well, Ford would have taken the bailout if GM didn't receive it. It wasn't about GM receiving the bailout or Chrysler at the time. It was about suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
Suppliers needed the bailout.
Right.
Suppliers were who cares about GM and Chrysler? I don't give a crap about those guys. Suppliers needed it. If suppliers go under, Ford goes under. Like people understand. You look at your any sales sticker. There's a slot that says parts by content by area. Most stuff comes from Mexico because most of the used car parts and new car parts are produced in Mexico. It's a huge part of the business. Thanks to the trade pacts we have with Mexico and Canada, that's been a big business over the years. So, suppliers are so massive. And I just think that every year, Auto News puts out a thing that talks about supplier relationships, and Ford has struggled with that over the years. And they need to do a better job of reaching out to suppliers, making better relationships, and really spending a lot of time on the stuff. This issue with the hard tops is all about supplier relationships. It's about Ford. Ford's a tier 1 supplier. Ford's a big company. The next supplier is tier 1 supplier. They have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. If a tier 1 supplier got told by Ford to go fart in the corner, they go fart in the corner. Right? I mean, that's what the business is. That's the hugest business. You're talking millions of dollars. You're talking livelihoods here. And so for the fact that Ford did not spend time to work with the suppliers as much as they should have, that's a bad reflection on Ford, not the supplier issues.
Yeah.
Ford will point the fist and say, that's a supplier issue, working on that supplier issue. No. Supply chain is the big issue, which is what Mobile Mondo said. It's a big issue, and Ford has dropped all that historically. If you look at the recalls they've had, look at the stuff they've had, look at the days the Explorer, and was it Explorer and Firestone tires way back in the day. I mean they've had a legacy of having piss poor relationships with suppliers.
Well, they threw Firestone under the bus like crazy.
Oh yeah. I mean, and so it's like this is what happens is that people look at Ford as this big company, and they are a big company. But the reality is they're a big company with most of their people who work on the lines. Upper management's like 25% of the company.
Yeah.
And suppliers make the other aspect. UAW makes up the other aspect of the line. I mean, that's how these companies are managed. And for them to screw up supplier relationships is just mind-boggling in this day and age. That's why you get brands like Toyota where they've done, and I'm being so again because I know them pretty well. They brought their suppliers onto their plant in San Antonio. Mm-hmm. They have a supplier who builds I forget what it was, but they literally are like adjacent to the assembly line. They build parts right there in the supply line.
Well, that's Nissan does. Nissan does the same thing. All the dashes are all by subcontractors in the plant.
Right. You're right. And look at Ford. Ford's having to fly places and talk to suppliers to be able to build hardtops.
Yeah.
How asinine is that?
Well, some of that's got to be because these companies are so old, and the square footage they need anymore versus they don't want to tear down plants and rebuild them.
Yeah, but I mean, for crying out loud, during the recession, Detroit went back to growing crops in downtown Detroit. I mean, I was in Detroit during the auto show right after the recession in 2007. I was thinking in 2008, 2009, whatever was there. And something like that. Maybe it was a little bit later than that. Anyways, the mayor came out the day after the press preview of the Detroit Auto Show. And he said, thank God. And I said, what? He goes, thank God the automakers had so much stuff to show, so journalists weren't walking around Detroit talking about how bad it looked.
Oh, I remember being my first trip was in 2007, I think, to Detroit, and I went up in the summer, and by that November, it was like a war zone went through there, man. It was crazy how
you had boarded windows. I mean, it was just, and Detroit has done I've been to Detroit, downtown Detroit. I was there, I think, last year. They did an amazing job cleaning that city up. A great job. So, and I'm sorry, but you're Ford.
Yeah.
You're GM. If you cannot get real estate, and that's I grew up in Michigan. I graduated high school in Michigan. There's a lot of farm country out in Michigan, and there's a lot of places to build stuff. And so, if you can't get your ducks in a row, And that one of the issues that Ford, GM, and Chrysler have always had is that they get the Michiganism about it. So once you cross the Michigan-Ohio border, you don't see any imports.
Oh no, no! I drove up in a Honda Element, and I got the weirdest. Oh my god, I got the weirdest looks, man.
Oh yeah, it's like remember that VW game you played? You hit somebody with that's what you do imports, right? So I drove a. So I remember the Toyota PR reps were calling me from Michigan. They were like, "Man, we never win awards, so I can stop and bitch about it." I said, "Man, you never will win an award. You're not going to win anything, and come on."
Yeah.
But I said, once you come out here, like I see, if you're going to categorize my company, which I think is bull because they're all multinational companies, but I see Asian brands, I see, all different automakers out here. And so it's like, it's funny because it's like, once you come, and that's what you get. So like, if you are, and I've said this many times, if you're a Mary Barra, if you are the head of Ford, Jim something or other, if you drive to work every day and all you see are Ford and you see Chevys and you see GMCs and you see Rams, every day you drive to work, that's what you see. Well, you're a byproduct of your environment. That's what you are. Mm-hmm. And so I actually went to Toyota and I said, "Hey," I said, "you guys moved to Texas." I said, "Great. Maybe you'll build heavy-duty trucks." And they were like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, instead of your Toyota executives flying to California, which is liberal California, and you're seeing all these Japanese makers, because Japanese have always done the coast, and I'm being, I hate to be this way. This is what I'm going to be, because they're all multinational corporations. That's what the companies are. Mm-hmm. But all of Nissan, Subaru, and Toyota historically were import companies starting the coast and worked their way in. That's what they did.
Right.
That's where the ships would be able to drop off vehicles to. So your Japanese executives are flying in. Jim Farley, Good Catch Mobile, are flying into L.A. and they see a bunch of imports all the time. Mm-hmm. If I flew into LA, I think Toyota's doing great because I see a ton of Tacomas. Right? But if I fly into San Antonio, Texas, or I fly into Dallas, actually they're in Plano, the headquarters. If I fly into Dallas, Texas, and I see 1-ton dualies with diesel smoke coming out of the back end that do not have Toyota on the name, mm-hmm. I think something wrong. I remember talking to the chief engineer about this. They have a meet and greet day in Michigan where they bring in engineers from Japan and they all meet together to talk about the vehicles, or whatever. And he said he was there one time and there was a trailer in the corner. It was a 40-foot trailer, and they had a 3/4 ton, I think it was a Chevy, that pulling this trailer. And the Japanese executive engineer was just off his gourd. He was like, "What the hell is going on? This is just terrible. How the hell do you not have a Toyota pulling that?" And he says, "The Tundra won't pull it. And you heavy duty to pull it. We don't build one."
Right. Oh, it was amazing. Guy that used to work with us he was covering the Atlanta Auto Show, and Nissan was sending a bunch of stuff down there, and it showed up in a Chevy dually. All these cars they were pulling down there, it's because they don't build anything. But it is what's cool about the way these companies done with Nissan coming to Nashville, Toyota going to Texas. That was strategic. I mean, obviously the tax rates for both states are great, but they're trying to create a base in these states to spread out. They already own the coast, like you're saying. They kind of own the coast with cars. So now with trucks, you need to be where truck sales are, and Texas is the largest truck market out there. So it was smart for Toyota to jump right in there.
I've always said Nissan's problem has always been the Titan, especially. Titan's not a bad truck. I've been very clear when I've said that in different videos. Nissan's problem is dealers. Mm-hmm. Rural dealers are non-existent.
Yep.
Dealers want to sell the Sentras, they want to sell all the Muranos, they don't want to sell Titans. Because they live in Miami. They live in SoCal. You can't sell a Titan. I mean, God bless you. If you want to drive a Nissan Titan through Los Angeles every day, God bless you. Because I've been in LA, and that sucks. It's tough. So, that's the reality of things. And I've always said, and Nissan's never done more. So, the nearest Nissan dealer for me is 90 miles away.
Right.
That's a long way for warranty work, mm-hmm. for factory oil changes. It's a day.
Yeah.
For us, it's an hour and a half down there, hour and a half back, lunch, whatever. You're at 4 or 5 hours. That's
you ruined your whole day. Yeah, just for a vehicle.
Yeah. Meanwhile, go up to Bismarck's, North Dakota, and drive through Bismarck, and you will see Ford dealers, Chevy dealers, and Ram dealers on top of each other.
Well, so Tim, we've been an hour 45 minutes. That's the longest probably stream you've ever done. But hey,
Lord.
guys, tomorrow I want to say I know you've got a stream tomorrow, right? You and Jill.
Yep. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I have one too, and I hate to pull away from Tim's, but I'm interviewing a guy that has terminal cancer tomorrow, and he's got a little YouTube channel. His name is Jim Hiscott, Hiscott. If you guys would go subscribe to his channel, his last little dream of his is he's building one final car, and he just wants some people to check it out. So I'm going to interview that guy tomorrow, and me and Danny are in. So come back with me tomorrow for a live stream on that. Check out Tim's. Obviously, Tim can talk. You've seen it here tonight. Tim knows how to talk cars and trucks. Tim, any final thoughts on the Bronco? 1 through 10, where do you rank the thing as of right now?
9.
9?
Yeah, and that's a high score for me. I think it's absolutely it lived up all the hype. It's spot on. It's just perfect in every way I can imagine it.
Yeah.
And I think it's so fascinating to watch. Ford is on fire if they can build vehicles.
Right.
You got Raptor, you got Bronco, you got Maverick that's doing really well. You got Lightning that sounds like to be pretty decent. So I mean, you got stuff that Ford can really get out of any sort of financial issues they may have in the future if they can build it. If they can build it, Ford is on fire.
Well, Tim, I greatly appreciate your time tonight, man. You gave me way more time than you probably should have. But guys, go check Tim's. He's in the chat there. You can find him that way. Go check Tim's channel out. I mean, I don't need to pimp Tim. He's got all these subs, and we're just merely peasants over here. But no, Tim does really good. Like I've always before I knew Tim, I followed his channel because I just liked his honest kind of real guy reviews. So go check his stuff out. And once again, spend some time with me tomorrow. If not, watch it in replay. I will pull clips out of this show tonight, and we'll have fun with that. So there you go, guys. We've been talking Bronco, and I think we could probably talk 3 more hours on Bronco, but I don't know what it's gonna do. Go buy the truck. Go see one. If it's in new local dealerships, go check them out. There's a ton of big bins that dealers are getting right now to sell. It's not uncommon, $5,000 to $10,000 over MSRP right now. If you've got the money and want one, go check it out. But so from all things 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, it doesn't matter what you drive because we've been talking Broncos with pickup truck plus SUV talk. Did I get it right, Tim? I got it right. All right. Peace, everybody.